The Lakers have won 7 straight games now. Are you a believer that they're as good as this record?
I am. First of all, every night that they step on the floor, they have probably the 2 best players that are playing in the game on their team. And then when you add the defensive prowess that this team has added this year, adding Avery Bradley, Danny Green, Anthony Davis. You also have Caruso, who can D up, KCP, who's a good defensive player, JaVale, Dwight Howard protecting the rim, and Frank Vogel, who's known for his defensive game planning. And so they bought into that. And then offensively, I don't worry about this team. With LeBron playing the point, you can always throw him and Anthony Davis in a 2-man game, and they can figure the rest of it out. But their defense is for real, and it showed in their record.
Number 1 rated defense in terms of efficiency for the LA Lakers, who come in at 7-1. And you see the difference between last year and this year. They've improved offensively from 24th to 17th, still middle of the pack offensively, but best in terms of a defensive rating, net rating as well. Is there any, it's too early to start asking this, but I'm going to ask you anyway. It's November. Are there pieces that they'll need before a playoff run coming in April, assuming everybody is healthy between now and then?
Yeah, the ones that aren't healthy. In essence, getting Rondo back integrated and figuring out, okay, what's his role going to be with this roster? Figuring out Kuzma, is he going to be their 6th man? Is he going to be kind of an instant offense guy for them, which is probably where they're going to lean. But then you want to establish, I think they've established their defensive identity, and we know who their 2 culprits are going to be offensively initially with Davis and obviously LeBron, but we still haven't seen what their total identity is going to be on that side of the ball. And that's going to be somewhat of a challenge for a guy like Frank Vogel, who's not known for offense, right? I think the advantage he's got is he's got 2 of the best basketball minds playing when you talk about LeBron and Davis and obviously Rondo as well. So I think I want to see what their ceiling is offensively. I think their defense is going to serve them well moving forward. But offensively, will they go to another level? That's going to tell me whether or not this team has a chance to be not just a championship caliber team, but they could be a great team, because there's a lot of teams right now that are all solid, but I don't see a lot of teams that I feel like have a chance to be great this year.
They haven't shot the ball all that well from 3-point range. Where else can they get better offensively as the season goes on and guys get to know each other a little better?
Well, I think it actually works out to their advantage that they play at somewhat of a slow pace, and with their defense being what it is, they're going to, take possessions off of both teams' side in terms of offensively. And I think that's going to work in their favor as their half-court execution gets better, as they get more familiar with one another as the season goes on. And the pace is slow, which Frank Vogel's teams have always been known for. Like I said, I think that'll work out in their favor. Offensively, I don't think that they're going to be a team. They're longer in the tooth at most of the positions, and I don't think that they're going to get up and down and run with those teams that play at a fast pace. But they know that they can get a bucket inside with Anthony Davis. They can put him and LeBron in pick-and-roll games. They do have the spacing now because they've added a lot of shooting to this team, and they have great size. And so when they do miss, they have guys in Dwight Howard, in Anthony Davis, in JaVale McGee, that can get on the offensive boards, and they have been pounding teams that have tried to play small against them.
22nd in the league so far, so bottom 3rd in the NBA. All right, much more to get to here on a Sunday night. Coming up, the 4-game series. Last year, Denver wins game number 1 for this time around. Jokic, 2 straight game winners after an early part of the season where the Nuggets were winning games, but the discussion was really about how engaged he looked. There were some games he didn't take a bunch of shots. Last 2 games, I think 22 and 23 field goal attempts. What is more important to you, the number of shots or just the way he goes about the game?
Yeah, I don't know that he's the kind of guy that's going to get 20, 25 every night. I don't think that fits his personality.
Right.
He's more of a guy, he reminds me in some respects of Rasheed Wallace. A guy who kind of just wants to get his through the flow of the offense. Now, you've seen him be more aggressive the last couple games, and because their bench hasn't been quite as good, I think that's going to be important for them. But they've been successful by having balance. He's been their best player, but they've had other guys that have been productive as well. Thus far this year, even though the record's really good, they just don't seem to be clicking the way they did last season. I think some of that is because the expectations have changed now. They kind of have a bullseye on their back, and they're getting everybody's best performance.
And Will Barton has talked about how they need Jokic emotionally invested. How does that manifest itself on the floor? As a teammate or as a coach, how do you know the guy is emotionally invested?
Well, I think they know him, better than us or anybody else out there. And I think his demeanor sometimes is just, you look at him, he doesn't look like he's in the best of shape. But he gets it done. And I think he's a player, much to what Greg just alluded to. He lets the game come to him, and he takes what the defense gives him. And so, as a coach or teammates or what have you, fans of his, you want to see him be more aggressive on the offensive end. But the things that he does are intangible. He gets everybody else involved. They know when he gets the ball and they cut hard, he's going to find them and deliver the pass on time and on target. And then when they need him to step up and make big shots in critical situations, we've seen him do that the last couple of games. And so in my recollection of him, he always kind of seems to start the seasons off slow on the offensive side in terms of point scoring. But then as the season goes on, he gets in better shape, and then he starts becoming more aggressive on the offensive end.
And he had 7 assists. He is the guy they go through offensively without a turnover as well. All right, we saw that last play, and we kind of poked fun at it for the Minnesota Timberwolves. You've been a head coach in this league. You've been the guy diagramming these shots, and we saw with Minnesota, we saw Andrew Wiggins take a 3 when he might have been better sort of driving the ball late in regulation, and then we saw this grease fire of a possession at the end of overtime where you've got guys bunched up in the corner. Obviously, Ryan Saunders doesn't draw it that way. Right. How many different things can go wrong for a play to wind up looking like that?
Well, I think, in looking at it, I think what happened was Towns, who was in the post, got pushed off. And pushed off the box and out into the perimeter a little bit higher than what he wanted to be. Or actually, that's Wiggins there that got pushed off. So he's supposed to hold his position to keep that spacing, and that didn't happen there. And so, Ryan Saunders is a young coach. I still think that there's some battling for pecking order between Towns and Wiggins, but I think in that situation you got to go to Towns and give him some space to either win or lose a game for your team.
I thought if you go back, that play was designed to go to Towns, which is fine. The problem was it was designed to go to Towns 25 feet from the basket, and so what happened was Denver just switched that and was able to deny it. And most oftentimes when you have end-of-game plays, you tend to have 2 to 3 options. So if a good defensive team might be able to take the first option away, and that's what they were able to do. And then there was a breakdown on that baseline. There's no way they should have had that poor a spacing because Wiggins wasn't really his fault. He turned into his play, but then the other defender, his teammate's defender, was there to kind of clog that up. So they did have some end-of-game execution issues. You talked about the last play of regulation. In a tie game, they had the ball, I think, with about 8 seconds to go.
Plenty of time, yeah.
And Wiggins just dribbled it down and shot a 25-footer. Now, generally, if you're in a zone or you're shooting it really well, I have no problem with that, but they were, 6 for 45 from 3.
And he was 1 of 6.
Yeah, and so I don't – and, again, that's not the strength of his game. The situations like that, if you're Coach Saunders, hey, look, you got to just put your head down and drive. We can live with a contested shot at the rim with your athleticism. You might get a call for a foul, but don't bail the defense out. The one thing you don't want to do offensively is what the defense wants you to do. Right. I guarantee you they were thrilled. Were the Nuggets that he basically settled for a 25-foot jump shot that was a sidestep. And so those are plays that winning teams you can't make, and that's a learning curve that has to be shrunk if you're Minnesota. If you want to become a good basketball team, you got to figure out ways to finish games. They had done such a great job to get back. The fact that they had a chance to win that game in regulation, they were getting dominated midway through the fourth quarter, and to have it end that way, that's got to be demoralizing.
We're shooting day of the season for the Timberwolves, both from the field and from three-point range. Again, 6 of 45 from three-point range. In progress, just underway, in fact, the Bucks and the Oklahoma City Thunder. That is, seeing that live now as the Bucks are wrapping up their 4-game trip out west, 2-1 so far after losing at the buzzer in Utah on Friday after a comeback there. They were down 25 in that game before they made a go of it. Giannis coming off a 30-point, 13-rebound, 14-assist game in that one, but fouled out for the 3rd time this season. What do you make of the Bucks so far? Now at 6-3 coming in, is this as good as the 60-win team last season?
I don't think that they're as good. I think that they're still trying to find themselves. You know, they lost Brogdon, they lost Mirotic. They have a couple new people in different places, and so I think that they're still trying to figure that out. But they're in a good situation. They're 6-3, you know, right up there, amongst the leaders in the Eastern Conference, and I think they'll be fine.